Hello and welcome to Rights and Recourse, a program that tackles issues affecting your rights and matters of legal recourse. My name is Dumila Matez. Remember, you can be part of our discussion today by tweeting us at Rights Recourse or calling our studio line on 011 714 5497 or 5498. Alternatively, email your thoughts to rightsandrecourse@sabc.co.za. The government's planned policy of traditional male circumcision has generated some controversy. Among other things, the proposed policy will for the first time see women play a key role in initiation schools. Many have seen this as a contradiction of the centuries-old African custom. Now, South Africans have until the 22nd of July to express their views on the proposed policy. Today on Rights and Recourse, we take a look at how this policy will impact on the ancient tradition and how South Africans are viewing it. And to help us unpack the topic, let's welcome today the Honourable Obert Bapila, Deputy Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. We're also joined by Ngosi Paul Mahlangu, Deputy Chairperson of the National House of Traditional Leaders, and we also welcome Professor David Musoma, Deputy Chairperson of the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities. Gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse. First of all, probably somebody said to me, probably government must be commended for having stepped in to stop this carnage. Those are his words, not mine. To stop this carnage that has befell our children.
Definitely, I think it's a very good initiative. And I've heard people commending us for finally coming to play in ensuring that we've got a policy that can really guide legislation and guide everybody in South Africa in the practice, and also how we then begin to come up with mechanisms to stop some of the wrongdoings that goes or associated with the practice itself.
Professor Musoma, the initiation rite is an embodiment of ideals, values and aspirations of both individuals and communities, reflected in the transfer of indigenous knowledge and practices. How did we get to where we are today?
Well, we got to where we are today because there are those who believe that tradition has to adapt to modernization. And there are those, because our tradition has been undermined for too long, who try to find shortcuts to recover that, but they do so wrongly. And there are those people who have found a loophole to use this as a way of making money. And of course, in that instances, we have people who, after graduating, for one reason or the other, find it expedient also to open their own school, without following due process, without really even referring to the traditional leaders in their own environments. So these are some of the problems that really befell this beautiful tradition in my own way.
Ngosi Mahlangu, one of the things I'm taking from what the professor is saying, there are people who, after initiation, think that they now have the right to open their own schools. Isn't that the role of an elder who is steeped in the custom and culture?
It has never been a role of a child to want to manage an initiation school, or even have a thought of running an initiation school, because we believe that on issues of initiation, it is an issue that involves a family. It is an issue that involves elders, and elders would be the ones that would sit down and decide that our children have grown up, and now that they've grown up, this is the process that they have to undergo. And that process, the very same elders are the ones that are going to choose people that are going to run the whole process. So it surprises us as traditional leaders that where do people get the guts to do it, and why is the community so quiet in allowing them to do what they are doing? Because this tradition and this culture, it belongs to no one but the parents. Tina, as traditional leaders, we are just a custodian of a culture that belongs to the whole community, and the community is led by elders. So, but I think this policy will assist us. We've always been calling for it, that there should be a policy, even though there are issues of consent, but I'm sure people will be making their own inputs, and so that we come up with a proper product that would properly protect and guide this good practice.
Deputy Minister, help me if I'm wrong. I am aware of provinces such as the Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga and Limpopo have developed their own legislations in this regard regarding traditional initiation. Have these failed?
Well, it's pieces of legislation that responds to particular specific issues, not the whole totality of initiation as a whole. You'll find that even at the national level, we have other pieces of legislation scattered everywhere. The Children's Act has some section on circumcision. They don't deal with initiation. Then we then have the health aspect. They talk of traditional circumcision. They don't talk of initiation. So we are bringing all those things into one being so that then all then can then subscribe. But we're also leaving the provinces then later to deal with the specific unique situations, because the culture of the Ndebelers is not the same the culture as the Xhosas, and you cannot have a national framework legislation then that binds them all. Then those then becomes your provincial specifics depending on the dominance cultures that then exist in that particular province.
Gentlemen, I would like all of us to take part in this discussion so that I don't tend to sound like a teacher asking for questions and the students must respond. Deputy Minister, you mentioned the Children's Act, number 38 of 2005. The policy also took into account this act. And in my view, the Act states that every child has a right not to be subjected to social, cultural, and religious practices which are detrimental to his or his well-being. Why then do you allow this to go on for so long?
Well, look here, that's why it's a choice now. That's why we are saying children should not be forced. It should be out of choice. It should be out of willingness. But then we then say, parents, you have a role. You must give consent to your own child, so that it's an acceptable norm that the child will come to you, and you must then discuss with the child and agree. And then based on that agreement, then take it to the people who've got the knowledge. The traditional leaders there will guide you, and then the people who are elders will then take you into that particular practice. So long as that can then be conformed to, I think quite a number of wrongdoings will stop. However, the recent case in Davidton, unfortunately, when Kumbis came and took the kids, 30 of them, to Denelton, somewhere between Mpumalanga and Limpopo, because there's a border area there. The children were found by the police after parents complained. And then they all together went there. And when they arrived, the children said to the parents, sorry, it was out of our own accord. These people did not kidnap us. You could then see, therefore, that the relationship between the parents and the children did not occur. And the children went on defiance. But also peer pressure also is another element that comes in. Hence, awareness and education ought to be brought into them to say, it's your right, but exercise it responsibly too.
Nkosi Mahlangu, earlier, I know you wanted to come in, Prof, but I want to ask Nkosi Mahlangu this, and then you can come in after that. Nkosi Mahlangu, earlier, we spoke with the Prof about the fact that this is a custom, an old custom. What happened to the norms of the traditional way of imparting information, how this is done, this from father to son to grandchild, all of that? Why do we need policies to do that?
I think, Dumile, we must admit that as a new democracy, as people now find new areas to live in, they move into cities and all those, and I think there's a lot of cultures that we are starting to be a cosmopolitan society, different cultures coming together, and so now a lot of people are getting confused in many areas, where one culture would be talk about initiation, but it's different from my culture and all those, and when these cultures clash, there would be a gap that is created for those that would want to take advantage of that gap. And also, if you look at the fact that there's a lot of people that are hungry out there, so people will then look at this as a way of making money, because you have these cultures that are clashing. They know that if you are a traditional leader belonging to this culture, you would not necessarily know how to run the other culture. So this person would come and say, I am Sutu, you are Ndebele, from where I used to come from, I used to run an initiation practice. And because people are allowed to practice their culture wherever they are, and then you'd allow that person. And those people then, things would go wrong. So that's why now we needed a policy to guide some of these practices, so that when one is from whatever culture that you come from, there will be norms that are guiding all of us that are more or less the same.
Well, we'll continue with the professor when we come back. If you'd like to join us on today's discussion, please call us on 011 714 5497 or 5498, or tweet us at Recourse. We'll be back after the break.
Oh, hi. Just brushing up on my party. We are going to make it number 12. Official. Let me teach you a quick word. Yeah. Quite a star. A woman who has mastered the art of dancing in high heels. It's up and flick, up and flick.
Help make Party South Africa's 12th official language. Sign the petition today.
Hey, selfie?
No.
Your World makes it its business every evening to round up the leading local stories and international news to keep you informed all the time.
Make a date with Your World every evening for all the news headlines around the world to keep you abreast with knowledge.
Catch Your World for headlines across the world every Monday to Friday from 9 p.m, then Saturday and Sunday from 7 p.m.
Welcome back. Let's have a look and see what the Twitter community has to say about this issue. Behind me here, I was trying to look behind me here. I'm trying to find the tweets. Tamim Kosana saying, then we might as well end the initiation process if we give women a role. We'll definitely respond to that. Joya says, it will be a good course. Women know how to treat people and bayazwelan. And Kamogelo Marco says, those who do this are destroying and mocking cultural practices and fueling misconceptions. Gentlemen, let's respond to some of those tweets. There's one there that says, yes, women are good people because they know how to treat other people. Professor, probably you should start with the comment you wanted to make earlier, and then you can respond to some of the tweets.
I want to start off by saying that the issue of consent by children allows for a discussion among themselves, and the children and the parents, because no two persons can work together unless they agree. And we are introducing that in a diverse cultural environment, kids must understand what they are going in there for, because this is a school for life, where they're going to be taught about values, responsibilities, and these values are important because they become the undergirding foundations of the new society in which we're trying to build. So it's very key in that respect.
About the role of women? You have to say something.
Yes. From the Commission side, we understood the sacredness of the institution of tradition of initiation and circumcision. And the role of women is at home on a supportive role. For example, kids before they go for initiation, they have to be psychologically of sound mind, or they have to be healthy. It is important that that aspect is taken care of. When the child is ill, the mother would be able to know that the child is ill, because they are those who represent the family in the initiation school itself. So keeping the women abreast about these issues. But since there are two institutions, the circumcision institution for males and the circumcision institution for females, it will be ironical to see women going into the circumcision for males while males cannot go to the circumcision for females. But the separation there, it's for purposes of ensuring that the kinds of lessons that are given are different because they are shaping different responsibilities in society. But these responsibilities are shared when the kids are out in terms of how they play out those values in society.
I just want to make the point before we respond further to what the Prof is saying. Put there, the Prof seems to be agreeing with Kosi Malisela Dikale, who says the women don't allow men to be present during the female circumcision. Why should they? But then also there is a lady in Port Elizabeth, Dr. Elizabeth Mamisa Chabula Ngiweni, who actually came with some of the issues that have been taken up by this policy. She started, among early standard operating procedures she introduced were obligatory post-circumcision medical checkups and parents or guardians signing permission for traditional circumcision. These are all the things that are contained in this document that came from a woman a long time ago, about 10 years ago.
Definitely, I think there's confusion, I must say, and I did engage on the text of the policy proposal. It's still a policy proposal. People are allowed to comment and make suggestions. It does not say women will go in where
they should not be
going in. But it does define that the role of women ought to be from home, when they prepare the children to go in, when they are in. Obviously, when they are in, then there's an intermediary person who will then engage and then talk about the safety of the children they are doing, and then so forth, so that as a mother, you always know. And however, we also recognize that a number of families are women-headed now. The father is not there, is absent. As you know that we've got 12 million children in South Africa who do not know who their father is.
Mr. Deputy Minister, hold it there. It looks like women won't allow us to talk about them and they don't engage. Well, let's take this call from Nobuntu from the Eastern Cape. Nobuntu, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Ndiyabulela kuwe tatumhlo umphashazi. Ngunobuntu lona umama oselebhothe olapha Eastern Cape okwinkolo kanti yendiki. Ndifuna ukuthi tata sinengxaki ngalento ngoku yithu siyibonayo yoba isiko lethu belikade lilunga lisenza ngendlela eright lingazange lihluphe. Okwesibini ke ngoku silibona selise into siboniswa izinto esingazange sizibonje singomama. Singomama siyayazi indima yethu uba ihamba iphele thina emakhaya. Ngoku into ezida ngokufuneka side siyofikelela kwizinto ezingazange kwaye le nto yoba iboniswe umhlobo into i-TV siboniswe zonke izinto ezingazange sizibone. Yiyo le nto xa ubona into ongazange uyibone uba nomdla aba bantwana sebesenza izinto njena benga amakhaya wabo bengayihoyi bayifumana kule TV babone i-strength nentoni kanti uba besithina amakhaya ethu umntana engenayo kwa umzali thina kwantu zange ngabikho umzali ekhayeni umntana oluswe ngabo bantu baphethe bekhaya iyasihlupha ke lento yethu iboniswa ngolu hlobo emoyi apha eTV sibona abantwana besenziwa zenzo zange sizibone thina besisazi
enkosi mama Nobuntu sivile mama Nobuntu. What Mama Nobuntu is saying, she's complaining about the graphic detail that are sometimes portrayed on television, and sometimes the first people to see the initiates when they go to hospital are the nurses, and the things are just too graphic, and that's what she's complaining about. She's worried about where the custom is going to. I saw Kosi Mahlangu nodding.
I fully agree with Umama. I think this culture, it is sort of like becoming a laughingstock, where it is there for everyone to see, for everyone to comment. Yes, we do agree that there are problems that are there, and we are dealing with them as the institution of traditional leaders, together with our communities, together with government, with the Deputy Minister especially. We're trying to resolve all those things. But I think some of the things that we see on TV, they leave a lot to be desired. Are things that we don't want to see. And even the role of women, we believe that when the policy was crafted, I think some of these things are done and they pity us against women. And we respect women, we respect their role. Women that are in rural areas, women that practice this culture, they know their role, they appreciate their role. And they've always some of the things that are in the policy, they've always done them, you know, and they see, a lot of them now are complaining, they see it as a problem, that now all of a sudden, as women, we have all these women that don't necessarily practice this culture, and they are the ones that are calling for some of these changes, and changes that they don't even know.
The most talkative women.
Yes, the most talkative women in the society are women that absolutely know nothing about the
But
culture.
Kosi Mahlangu and Professor, with great respect, the policy does not say women are going to go to the sanctity of the custom. It says women will be caregivers, which is what their role is. Their role is you nominate a woman, this lady is going to cook for the boys when they are there. That's the only thing they sometimes do.
And it does not even deliver the food.
It does deliver the
people
food.
who deliver the food.
Yeah. I think we are trying to make that distinction so that the public should have clarity in terms of what that role is, because I think in the policy it's very, very clear that women's role cannot be excluded at this time. We need to focus on it. So
there is an important point, right, Prof, you're right. There's an important point that says the woman remains the parent of the child.
Precisely.
Even when he's at the school.
And we all agree. We all agree.
Yeah. So it's important to make that link, that there are processes to take care of that, not to exclude women. Because if you talk about exclusion, it's a different story. They're not excluded. They have a role to play in the process, which is precisely what the policy seeks to explain.
Minister, I know you wanted to say something. I wanted to put this together with, you've taken the provisions of the Child Care Act into account. And the Children's Act says a child cannot be, nothing should be done to the child that's going to be detrimental to the child at an early age. But surely this goes against the Jewish tradition that says a child is circumcised after 8 days.
We are not talking about circumcision there. Circumcision, you can do 8 days, you can do a month old, you can do any time of your life. But we talk about initiation, which is a cultural rite of passage from boyhood to adulthood. So circumcision is just but an element in it, which constitutes 10 or 20%. 80% is about the cultural values and the value system that you ought to be taught and be prepared as an adult. Where we differ, obviously, with the traditional leaders, particularly in Limpopo, is around the issue of the age. What age is it? Limpopo says 12 years, and when I ask them and say, but how does a child of 12 years, when he comes back and he tells me that he's a man now, at the age of 12, it doesn't work at all. You know, for me, no. Because the child becomes adult when they are of 18, they can vote, they can get a license, they now begin to start a life of being responsible people, Lord. Not at the 12. In Mpumalanga last year, we buried a child of 7.
Let's hear from the traditional
coming
leaders.
From dying in the traditional school. I mean, I know he's from the village. He knows we went together into that funeral.
No, I think with my culture, I think everything goes in fours. And for you to go to an initiation school, there has to be 4 initiation seasons that have gone through. And each and every initiation season is after every 4 years. So by the time you go, you are between 18 and 22 and all those. So to us, you are moving from boyhood to manhood. But yes, there are cultures that would prefer a younger child. And if you go to Limpopo, Limpopo will tell you that we take 28,000 boys to an initiation school. We've never had problems. And now when you are coming with this age of yours, we are now going to start having problems. Because we had our own reasons why we decided at this age that we are working on. It has been a widely accepted community decision that this would be an age that is acceptable to them, and it has worked for them. So,
but when I engaged them, I said, what is it in it? They said the healing is quicker on a child. It's more about circumcision. And we are talking about initiation here. And that's why I kept saying, let's engage on it, let's find each other. And then here's a space now available during the policy comment. We'll go in there, because from policy we are going to go to legislation. And during the legislation development, we'll then engage communities and say, do you talk about circumcision or are you talking about initiation? The two are different.
What form does the consultation take as you go from province to province?
Well, currently it's public comments that people write and then submit, and then will then be consolidating them after the 22nd of July, after extending the
I'd like you to repeat that when we come back from a break. Unfortunately, we have to go to a break. When you come back, we'll repeat that. If you'd like to join us again and do what Mamundo was doing, you can call us on 011 714 5497 or 5418, but we ask you to stay with us.
In Africa, mobile devices are tools to make payments, browse the internet, and keep governments in check with social media forums.
It's given an average African too much power in their hands.
And tech creativity is solving some of the continent's problems.
Everything is internet driven.
And on Network, we tell you how Africans are using technology and social media in their everyday lives.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.
The city of Durban and its surroundings is one that is filled with history and cultural diversity.
Durban is a natural paradise known for its gorgeous coastline of sun-kissed beaches and subtropical climate.
Flea markets are essential to visit if you want to experience Durban's Afro-Oriental atmosphere.
The city of Durban is an elegant, mature and ambitious city. The vendors at the Vic offer a range of African and Oriental products, an eclectic mix that is hard to resist.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays at 5:30 p.m. CAT.
Welcome back to Rights and Recourse as we discuss the policies of the Department of Traditional Affairs regarding traditional circumcision schools or initiation schools. Let's go back to the Twitter committee and see what the people have been saying, because it's been thick and fast, coming thick and fast. The Thabo Tsoteji says parents who are involved in their child's initiation process could also prevent fatalities. Thabo also further goes and says if the government was to hold traditional leaders responsible for fatalities, it could prevent these fatalities. Leroy Manala says initiation schools is solely for men, so no women is allowed anywhere near it. Olebukhang Musiapua says by cutting your boys at hospitals in early age. In other words, Olebukhang Musiapua says the boy can be cut at the hospital at an early age, and then he can go to the circumcision school when he's old enough to do so. What's your view with that, Professor?
Well, I think it's a matter which needs discussion, because surely there is a distinction. If you have to induct it into manhood from boyhood, that passage,
yes, the passage
has to have a distinctive. If a young person of 7 years old would go and within 3-6 weeks comes back and says, I'm a man, there is no implication. The child doesn't understand what it means. So let's talk about that. I think it's a subject of discussion with the traditional leaders, whether it makes sense in terms of that proposal to say, okay, if we have to look at the first part of it, which is constituted, as the Deputy Minister said, 10 to 20%, why don't we do this at a different place? But remember, these things have got the same impact. So hence, for me, it should be done in one place, because the effect must, it's a school. You can't say I'll do this part somewhere and I'll do this part elsewhere. If you can have one syllabus in which that first part gets done, going to the second part at the same time, that will be good. But given the challenges, it could be separately.
Let's hear from Nkosi Mahlangu before I go to the Minister, because the Minister was explaining something very important.
Okay. I think as traditional leaders will all agree that a 7-year-old can never go to an initiation
So
school.
we're going to win over Limpopo.
Look, Limpopo
says 12.
Limpopo had a legislation. Their legislation that said from 12 years they can go to an initiation school. So that legislation, I guess, it must have been informed by something that came from Limpopo. To us, Dumile, whether a person goes through medical male circumcision or they are circumcised when they are young or not, I think it's irrelevant to us as traditional leaders and people that do this custom.
But not in the Eastern Cape.
Because to us...
They will kill you there. They will definitely kill you there, seriously.
To me, what is of concern to us is initiation. In terms of what happens when you are in an initiation school, it is only those that have gone to an initiation school that would know what happens there. So, Tina, what people do at home would not have a problem. You can take your child and you circumcise them, you can go to medical male circumcision, it's fine.
I think you've given us a distinction between circumcision and initiation.
Yes.
You've given us that because it's not about cutting the piece
and then you are a man.
And then you are a man.
Yeah, no, Tina, we will not get involved. In fact, normally, I normally don't like to get involved in the circumcision discussion because in my culture, it is neither here nor there.
It's a family issue.
You know, we talk about initiation. In terms of what happens when you are in an initiation school, it is only those that have gone to an initiation school that would know.
That can talk about that.
That can talk about what happens there. In terms of what you do and what has been done. I think
that is what the Eastern Cape traditional leaders are saying. They're saying it is only the people who have been to a traditional school who can talk about it.
Well, they are right. I mean, let's really give that respect of what happens in the traditional schools. There are ritual elements that we have never spoken about. I've never spoken about them because I respect the ritual aspect, the cultural aspect that goes with it. What we are talking here more is the issues of age, who goes in. Yes. And we are now saying that let's then take the age that is the Children's Act, 16 years, 17 years, and 18 years. And to accommodate Limpopo from moving from 12 to at least 16, 17.
The Deputy Minister is sure he's going to get something there from Limpopo to move from 12 to 16.
As a compromise,
let's take this call from Mutusi from Northwest. Mutusi, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse. Fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. Look, I've got a question.
What's your question?
This is a question that has been boggling my mind for some time now. Look, I am not from initiation school. I refused to go because every time when I have seen people who have come from there, they come back wearing the blanket of the Basotus. They come back singing the Basotho songs, but they are Batswana. You understand? That's my problem. We are Batswana. I am Murolong. I'm from the Barolong clan. And you get people who go there, and when they come back, they come singing Tonga songs. And they are saying they are from initiation school of Batswana. And I will never go there until that issue has been resolved.
Thank you,
Mutusi.
Yes, Mutusi.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mutusi. Mutusi still wanted to say more, but he says he's okay. He's just complaining about this. It looks like Ndebeles have a huge influence on the other nations in that part of the world, that north part of the world.
No, I think, we always say people should practice their own cultures. And I think it's something that would always, even in our areas, you find that a lot of young boys, because the Sotho-speaking people will take boys to initiation school every year. It happens once in 4 years. And you find that some of our boys would go there, and come back, try to bring these two cultures together. Sometimes it's a bit of a problem. So we'd always encourage that if you are Ndebele, go to your Ndebele initiation school. If you are Tswana, go to your Tswana initiation, because that's where you get your own identity.
I want the Prof to come in here.
As a person.
Prof, it looks to me that Mutusi is confused because I don't know. I don't want to say that Tswanas don't go to any initiation school. I don't want to be quoted as saying so.
Well, I think from the Commission side, what we are doing in terms of our mandate is to protect and promote. We emphasize diversity of cultures is important as a tapestry of building a cohesive and united country. So we would be happy if each of those distinct distinctive groupings exercise their own culture. In the event it doesn't exist in one, they are interested in that other one. Let be agreements. Oh, we won't go to this one. But ours is to make sure that there's no culture which is going to be diminished in our presence, given our mandate.
But there's also intermarriages that are also taking place in today's society. And then you'll find that the father and the mother come from different cultural backgrounds and groupings. And it's by the discussion by the family. But we know that the family structure in society is also becoming dysfunctional. And those are the challenges that are now cropping up also, which society ought to, as we bring order and stability in the
Let's take this call from Nomawetu in Johannesburg. Nomawetu, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Molo Putuli.
Molo Nomawetu.
Ndinomasikadamshani lapha eGauteng kodwa ikhaya liseGcuwa. Putumile ndinengxaki yoba elisiko lethu niliphathe zakazaka kangaka ekuneni ningotata. Elisiko lethu yinto esihlakeleyo komama. Asiyazi thina noba yinto kwenziwa ntoni esapha. Thina sigqibela ngela xesha kubetha umpu asiboni nendlu yomkhwetha. Ngoku niyasihlaza ngoba ndikuva uthetha nangephisi esukayo esukaphi. Sanusihlaza ngesiko lethu. Esiko thina siyalithanda. Otata bethu bahlala 6 months kulo kwangekho ngxaki. Ingxaki esinayo inye abantwana bethu xa besiye sapha amazili. Thina sasizila singahlandi nokuhlamba sizile nabantwana bethu. Sasizile mina ningamaXhosa. Sicela ukuba niliprotecte isiko lethu.
It was very pertinent. It would seem to me, probably we can respond to this when we come back from the break. I don't know how much time we have, but it would seem to me we have seen two women folks calling into the program, totally opposed to be involved in anything that has to do with initiation.
Well, look, I mean, it depends from one culture to the other. I was in Solo last week. When I arrived there, I found women preparing the meals not far from where Iboma, which is what is called initiation school. And I was asking, why are these women near us so close? They said, no, gwembegwe yetu tinasilego siyakuvuma but abangeni phakathi bangama maphaya baphekelela abantwana bathi. And then also we're building these bombers. Women were building the bombers in Amambondomiso, probably is the way Amambondomiso does it. But obviously, it will be another different circumstances. We then allow those places to be left to them. We are not prescribing them in the law. We are leaving those to them, but we then say the women's role cannot be ignored completely. And also, women must give concession, but also there's what we call pre-screening, where the parents must give. If it's a single-headed family by a woman must also give concession to some Muyanghen. And the women must know, oh yeah, people are going to say, ubani follows warana lesikole lazobamba nomntwana hayi ukuthi uzoyenza lento leyo cha akangeni apho mama.
Thank you, Minister. We'll come back to these issues. There are many issues I want to raise. There's also an issue of consent. The Minister has raised it. There's also another issue where a family was taken to court by a youngster who was taken to and he got hurt and he took his family to court. But when we come back, we'll discuss that. If you'd like to join us, you can still call us on 011 714 5497 or 5498 or tweet us at Rights Recourse. You can also email and give us topics we can discuss on Rights and Recourse at sabc.co.za.
SABC News seeks to be the biggest, the most extensive and diverse news organisation on the continent. Our mission is to provide accurate and credible news and current affairs programming throughout the day. we are committed to covering every part of the continent. We reflect the world to Africa and Africa to the world. SABC News, Africa's news leader. Now available throughout the continent.
Several thousand migrants are adrift in boats in Southeast Asian seas.
The refugees have been abandoned at sea by human smugglers with little food and water.
The UN has appealed to the governments of Thailand, Indonesia and Malaysia to act quickly to avert a massive humanitarian crisis.
Leaders will meet in Dar es Salaam on Wednesday to discuss the political crisis in Burundi.
At least 19 people have been killed and more than 200 wounded during violent protests against President Nkurunziza's bid for a third term.
Primetime News, daily at 6 p.m.
Welcome back to Rights and Recourse. We're still discussing the issue of a government policy on initiation schools. And Nkosi Mahlangu, you wanted to respond to what Nomawetu was saying.
Yes, what I wanted to say is that Abu Mama, those two women, are not necessarily saying that they want nothing about their role in initiation. They are stating their role as they understand it. But all they are calling for is the secrecy, the respect of the secrecy element within this practice of initiation. I think that was the crux of what they were saying, both of them.
Well, again, I'd like to point out, though, we are aware that there's sanctity around this issue, and we as the media would only like to flesh out the kind of things that everyone is talking about. That's the death and destruction of our kids, the mutilation of their bodies, and would like to have that sorted out. And we are grateful to the department for having brought earlier, Minister, you spoke about how the consultation will take place.
Well, the consultation it's now on, where people can comment and submit those comments to the forwarded address, which is published in the document, the Department of Traditional Affairs, so that we could then get those comments, consolidate them together with the policy and what people are saying. We will then put it together for a development of a legislation. Once legislation has been developed, it will go to the cabinet, and the cabinet will then give it a thumbs up. Then it will go to Parliament, and Parliament will come back again, where they will physically come to where you are, consult on you, have public hearings as the normal law of the way we produce legislation in South Africa. And then thereafter, then our views will be incorporated, and we'll have a legislation that we hope it will be a fully embracive legislation, loved and taken care of by all.
Prof, I think probably let's go back to something that I've actually thought I was going to ask the Minister, which has to do with what if a child, a boy from the Eastern Cape, I know the Eastern Cape is very strong on this, a boy from the Eastern Cape refuses flatly to go, says he's not going to go. I know of a case where somebody took his family to court for having forced him to go to the initiation school. And also, there is a book written by Luthando Mgqolozana that advocates strongly against the custom. If I'm not mistaken, we have also had a court case, as I said.
If I think the Deputy Minister spoke about the issue of consent. The legislation provides for that. If the child says, I don't want to go, you can't force the child in there. Because if you do, you are violating the rights of the child. Also, it depends at what age. After the age of 18 is an age of consent. You're above the younger age. So my view is that that right must be protected, which is why there must be a discussion between the parents and the child. Show the child the value of this initiation, what value it adds both to himself, to community and the family. Once that is understood, the child will willingly join in the initiation process.
Actually, I had a question here, Minister, that said, and Nkosi Mahlangu, that said, the role of women is hardly diminished as the boy normally confides to the mother that I am ready now to go to the sex for initiation school.
Definitely, it has been like that, and we are still encouraging it to be. And that is why we say the role of women, as far as it can go, in terms of their own cultures, allow it to express itself. And where they ought to stop, obviously the culture will then prescribe on where you can go as far as the women. But I was saying the whole thing of hiding what is happening there with the child, whether the child is still of sound, the well-being of the child, that also ought to be an information that keeps going to the mother, so that the mother and the parent is still informed about the safety of the children there. If anything goes wrong, they ought to be informed, not to come in and caregiving at that particular point in time. But then should anything go wrong, professional people are now being mobilized to come in. Medical doctors have said those who have been to initiation themselves have been mobilized to come and help to rescue this culture and ensure that it does no longer kill. People can practice with love and then also practice it without deaths occurring.
It would seem to me, from the steps you explained, what the policy is going to, the steps the policy is going to take. It will also have to go to the House of Traditional Leaders, because reading the statements by Nkosi Sitlamuroho Tobejane and Nkosi Dikale, it would seem to me you've got a lot of work to do with the traditional leaders.
Definitely, it will go to stakeholders across. And go to communities in the traditional spaces. It will go to traditional leaders. It will go to the various houses. It will go to the National House, National Assembly. It will also go to the NCO, because it's going to be a Section 76 bill that needs provincial inputs too, where provinces, legislatures will also have a view, particularly those who are dominated by the practice of their culture. Will definitely, it's going to be a very involved process. We don't want to miss a step. We want this legislation really to be one of the best.
Well, we will come back with the professor when we come back. If you still want to join us in today's discussion, you can still call us on 011 714 5497 or 5498, or tweet us at Recourse. Stay with us.
Interjections about the deployment of soldiers in townships provoked a war of words between Diane Kolebanard of the DA and the Minister of Defense, Musivuya Mapisa-Nqakola.
I have been accused by the Minister of slaughtering people.
Honorable Kola.
May I assist the Minister, sir? I'm Honorable Kola Barnard.
Thank you very much. We actually ran a campaign in the 80s that actually threw you out of the townships because you were actually maiming our people.
So I would ask that I have an apology and a withdrawal.
I'm not going to withdraw.
No.
A View from the House, weekdays 2:30 p.m. CAT on SABC News.
Welcome back to Recourse as we discuss Initiation School, the policy that government is putting in place around initiation schools. You heard the Minister talking about a 76 Act. In other words, it has to go to both houses of Parliament, the National Assembly, and also to the NCOP. And let's hear from the professor. It looks to me we have an opportunity here to salvage our custom.
I agree. In fact, this policy or legislation is a landmark. It seeks, in essence...
Prof, I'll give you a chance to respond to that question that I asked. I forgot that Dumisani is on the line. Dumisani, good afternoon and welcome to Recourse.
Good afternoon, Baba.
Yes, Dumisani, what is your comment or question?
I want to go a step back earlier. I was quite impressed with Nkosi Mahlangu's response, and a bit disappointed by the professor sitting on the fence when it comes to the issue of boys being circumcised at the hospital and then going to the initiation school later. I think that proposal it's in the right. It takes us a bit in the right direction. But my disappointment, I would have loved to hear the professor getting off the fence and talking more like the academic, intellectual influencing processes, but he's too guarded. Nkosi Mahlangu was quite forthright, and the way he explained it, I liked it because he said circumcision is neither here nor there, which is very valuable because at the school, perhaps, that's where the values are imparted. But then my fear is some tribes would not buy into that because the fear would be once the boys are circumcised.
Thank you, Dumisani. Thank you. We heard you. Let's now hear from the professor. Professor, Dumisani says you are sitting on the fence on the issue.
I think it's not true because I was supporting precisely what Nkosi Mahlangu said, that there are two distinctive processes. You can choose the one process, which is part of academic work. You don't simply make a prescription. I said you can choose to take the first one separately, or you can have them together. You see, you can have both circumcision and initiate in one place, or you can have circumcision separately. So this is a more philosophical way.
I think Dumisani was pointing to the hospital issue.
No, because I was not talking about hospital issue, which is what he said is neither here nor there in terms of that practice itself. So I was talking about the process, okay? But the second part, which I think it's what you want me to answer, is that this policy, I consider it to be a landmark because it seeks to recover the cultural aspect of it, the perceptions which have been created with the resultant deaths of young people in circumcision has lended so rigorous critiques from society to the extent that some were calling that this culture is outdated, is barbaric, it must be outlawed. And this policy seeks precisely to say culture is central and this tradition must be kept because it has served our people then, even now, it can serve our people if only this policy would assist to do that.
The panel has agreed that the Deputy Minister will have the final word and that the Deputy Minister will tell us where do we go from here. You have given us a little bit of an inkling, but first of all, I want you to comment on what the professor was saying, what Dumisani was saying. Earlier you said whoever goes to hospitals in the Eastern Cape will not survive.
Well, definitely they have rejected it outrightly in the Eastern Cape. They still want to do it the traditional way. The only area that I'm engaging the traditional leaders in the Eastern Cape is bring in the male medical circumcision. Because the traditional assegai and this modern tool does not vulgarize your culture at all. And I really disagree. It's just the methodologies, the procedure, and that's so that we'll no longer have hurt, we no longer harm our children, and we no longer have children dying. We have so many botched operations where these young boys lose their manhood, and I don't think it's good. And I think we just have to allow that particular, is modernity, which we introduce into culture, but cultural aspects remain yours, and definitely this will not harm at all. We are engaging, we are talking, we hope one day we'll find each other. Because when I read the book by Nelson Mandela, and he said that when his manhood started, it was when an assegai was coming all the way up, going down. And it's prescribed in the book, it's not me, it's him who has been there. It's in Long Walk to Freedom, read that chapter. I don't think we should really continue saying, let's do the old way. And also the people, the traditional surgeons are not as trained today like they were in the past. That knowledge is no longer in abundance. Let's really begin to bring in new knowledge. Thank you.
Well, I think one of the other things that would make people run away is a reference to the Assegai instead of Umdlanga. This has been Rights and Recourse. This program is repeated at 10 tonight and at 5 on Monday morning. From all of us in the studio, thank you to our guests and good afternoon. Please continue to send us your comments on Twitter, and also you can email us on rightsandrecourse@sabc.co.za.